And welcome to the Full of Football podcast. I'm Austin Thomas.
And I'm Connor Thomas.
And today we are doing a pregame show for the Thursday night football game of the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Minnesota Vikings. Now, we're planning on changing up the format for the Full of Football podcast here. We've been doing some stuff over the past year and a half, 2 years, where we've been doing longer episodes, about 50 minutes to like an hour and a half. It could range anywhere from there. So we kind of want to shorten these episodes, make them a little bit quicker so that you guys will enjoy them a little more and maybe throw in a little bit more editing to make them exciting. Now, with that, we're going to get right into this episode. We have a bunch planned here to talk about because this is going to be an interesting game to watch. It's a tale of two offenses going up against each other, and one that used to be a defense, and then one that never was a defense. So let's get right into this. So Connor, let's start off with, who do you think is a big player in this game?
I think Deontay Johnson will have a big game today. He's been top 10 in yards. He's top 10 in receptions, targets. The Vikings have a weak secondary, and they've let up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers. And yeah, I think Deontay Johnson will just have a big game.
You think he's gonna get all the targets this game? How many targets do you think he's gonna get?
I think there's gonna be a solid 12 targets probably at least.
So do you think?
At least, but he's gonna be a big factor in this game.
Chase Claypool. Well, what's his effect?
I think Chase Claypool will have an effect. I think he'll make some big plays. I feel like Harrison Smith will impact him a lot. Chase Claypool is more of those big catch guys. He's more of a contested catcher, and I think the Vikings secondary, like Harrison Smith and those guys, is gonna do a good job containing those contested catches and making sure he doesn't catch it.
All right. Well, my big player in this game is going to be Chris Wormley, Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a defensive tackle. Now, when you think about the Pittsburgh defensive line, you automatically think T.J. Watt here. Now, last week, it was not just T.J. Watt. It was both Wormley and Watt who combined for 6 sacks, 2.5 from Wormley, 3.5 from Watt. Now, the reason I'm not putting Watt here, one, he's a big player as it is, but with that, he has 16 sacks on the year. So no doubt this Minnesota Vikings offensive line is going to be worried about him. But with them being worried about him, that's going to leave them a little bit for Chris Wormley to get a little more involved here. He's going to be the big focal point for breaking through that offensive line, which has been one of the better offensive lines on the season, allowing the second least sacks in the league. Great offensive line, and one of the best offenses here, but I think really a big disruptor for the Steelers is going to be Chris Wormley here, and if he can make a big game, I could definitely see this changing. Now, again, this game is, the Vegas odds have the Vikings winning this one. They have them by a little bit, it's not by much, but Vegas odds have Vikings winning this. Now, you chose Pittsburgh to win this, I chose Minnesota. I think that has to do with who we think is going to do bad in this game. Who's your bad player?
For my bad player, I have Dalvin Cook. He's questionable, but I'm pretty sure there's a good chance that he plays. But he's coming off an injury, so they don't want to overload him with work. I think Alexander Madison's going to get a lot of carries as well. Minnesota's offensive line isn't amazing. It's near the bottom in run blocking. And T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward, they have been probably second best. Well, they've probably been the best duo on the defensive line. So I think Dalvin Cook will have a pretty bad game.
I do have to disagree with that offensive lineman. I think that Minnesota's offensive line, pass protection-wise, has been one of the best in the league. And their run blocking, while it hasn't been exceptional, it's the reason that Dalvin Cook has gotten so much good games and Alexander Madison's able to do this is because of that offensive line. They have both had their big games this year, and that's not just because they're good players. That is a part of the equation, yes, but I think that offensive line is a big part behind that, and I think you're massively underestimating them when it comes to that.
I might be, but also in the past 3 weeks, Dalvin Cook has averaged 3.9 a carry all 3 weeks. Granted, yes, last week he did or 2 weeks, or whenever he got injured, he did get injured pretty early, but he still was averaging 3.9 carry. And yeah.
Like I said, I think that has a lot to do with him being injured too. And I do think that will be a part in this game, but I don't think he's going to do. I think he's going to split carries, like you said, but I don't think he's averaging 3.9, like you said, because this Steelers defense, while it has been T.J. Watt, and I think Chris Wormley will be a big part in this team.
I think you're forgetting about Cam Hayward. He's been probably the best defensive lineman. Or
I am
inside defense.
Not including him as much as I should. Whenever it comes to both of them, both Chris Wormley and Cam Hayward have been big parts of this offensive line, or defensive line, sorry. But when it comes to it, T.J. Watt is the focal point.
He is.
T.J. Watt is the focal point. That's no doubt. And I think Cam Hayward is good at run stopping. But when it comes to overall numbers, the Pittsburgh Steelers have not been a strong defense throughout the year. They have let up the 21st most. Or 21st least points per game, something along. I don't know how to exactly explain that. And their run defense has been 27th in the league. 27th out of all the 32 teams. So they have been bottom 5 in run defense all year long. And this is going up against one of the best running backs in the league. Again, granted, he's probably going to be limited. But Alexander Mattison is quite a good backup too. And whenever you have that change of pace, that's going to allow them to do much better. But anyway, back to my bad player here. My bad player is Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger, throughout the season, has had a 90.6 passer rating, which isn't terrible, but that's not really what you want from a quarterback when you have guys like Chase Claypool, you have Deontay Johnson, Eric Ebron for most of the season, and Pat Freiermuth, you have Najee Harris to occasionally check down to. You have these options available, and he just hasn't been great this year. Now you're coming in this one, obviously no Eric Ebron for the last couple weeks, but something that you really noticed a couple weeks ago is that they haven't been really making as many explosive plays as you might have thought. Obviously, Chase Claypool makes a couple, Deontay Johnson makes a few here and there. You're not really seeing Pat Freiermuth get much. He's getting more of those check down passes. Najee Harris, the only times he breaks off are for those big runs. He's not getting deep down the field passer. I mean, even 15-yard receptions. He's not getting those. And I think that's another big part into why Ben Roethlisberger has been a big part of that. He is not looking downfield much. And I think that's a huge part. And whenever you're talking about that, that's going to allow some more time to blitz. It's going to allow more times to blitz because you're not as worried about that deep pass. And especially when you have a guy like Harrison Smith here. Harrison Smith, a great safety. And he's going to be huge on the season. Eric Kendricks, another great linebacker for the team. Both of them can disrupt Ben Roethlisberger. And they're going to be a huge part to this Minnesota defense, which all in all hasn't been great, but that's also why I feel like people are overestimating Ben Roethlisberger's game this week.
Yeah, I have to disagree with that because Vikings defense has not looked good. They just lost to Detroit. They made Jared Goff look really good. They allowed him to just drive down the field without even a run game. And Big Ben has looked amazing. Well, not amazing. But he's looked really good since week 5. He's only had one bad game against the Bengals where he threw 2 interceptions, but that's the only interceptions that he's thrown since week 5. And I think Big Ben will just...
Again, that's got to be with him being conservative. I feel like he's going to continue doing that. Something else is with that loss to Detroit, I think that's going to fire up the guys. They realize, hey, they can't just put this on post control. Minnesota is a good enough team to make the playoffs, just like Pittsburgh is. But Pittsburgh isn't coming off a big loss like that against a completely defeated team, or minus the tie.
Steelers are coming off a really good game, though. They just beat the Ravens barely in the division game. They're going to be excited. They're going to be hyped. And
I think that could also lead to part of their downfall. Did you see what happened when Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool last year, when they started dancing and celebrating?
They danced throughout the year.
They did. But still, if you start celebrating too early, once it gets to a point, you can start dropping off, losing focus. And, I mean, that might have been something we've seen with the Chiefs, too. Now, again, that was continued success, and that is the Chiefs. It's a much different than one game. But I think when it comes to the Steelers specifically, I think you do have to look at that as a potential option here.
But the Steelers are coming off, like, a 1-week thing. It's not like they've been amazing ever since. They're like 6-5-1, I think I remember, and they've only come off one game. It's not like they've been amazing, like 11-0 or whatever they were. like last year.
So I could definitely see them coming out a little bit stronger, but I definitely feel like Minnesota is going to be sparked by that loss. I think especially when you're going up, like you were going into that game, oh, it's the Lions, we can't lose this one, and then you realize that you can lose to them, and other teams have realized that too. A lot of teams I think I have seen have put the Lions on cruise control for the first half of the game, and then they realize, wait a minute, this is still an NFL team. Mm-hmm. This isn't some high school team, and they do have to play football, and that has allowed the Lions to make a bunch of these games really close and tie against the Steelers and then beat the Vikings, who are both playing right now against each other. The two teams that haven't beat the Lions that have played them. And I think both of these teams, when you're coming into a game like Thursday Night Football, I think that's a big thing. But I've got Minnesota winning this one. You've got Pittsburgh.
Yep, I do have Pittsburgh.
Anything else you want to add?
I think that Pittsburgh's defense will also be really good with Adam Thielen out. All they have to do is really focus on Justin Jefferson. They're really the only regular receiving option. Tyler Conklin's pretty good in the red zone, but I think they just have to focus on shutting down Justin Jefferson, which will be a very hard task. He's been great past couple weeks, but I think that's all they really have to do and make sure that no one, the running backs can't break off for big gains.
And again, something people forget, Kirk Cousins, 106.3 passer rating throughout the season, 25 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, and 3,353 passing yards. That is hard to argue with. That is greatness right there, and I didn't know I'd be saying that about Kirk Cousins, but he has been great this year.
Yeah, that's just looking at basic stats.
That is basic stats, but
looking at the actual gameplay.
You can't deny basic stats. He has been productive.
But
and there's a reason behind that.
Tape is better than stats.
The reason what's the reason behind it then?
What do you mean?
What's the reason behind why he's done so well?
Because of running game, and he has good stats. I'm not denying that. Mm-hmm. He has been good in a couple times. But if you look at the tape, he's missed a lot of throws. He's made bad decisions in times. So.
And it hasn't hurt him so far.
That is true, but it will hurt him eventually. They have a losing record. They're like 5-7, I think.
Yeah, that's the defense's fault. Anyways, that is going to wrap up this episode and a small pregame show we have here. So make sure to tune in for more episodes like these, more pregame shows. We're going to have our big episode about Sunday football tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, sorry. In a couple days, so make sure to stay tuned for that. That's going to be a little bit of a longer episode, and then we're going to have a Monday Night Football pregame show too, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Whatever you think, make sure to leave a comment down below if you have a question for us, or if you want to make your predictions along with us. Again, I'm Minnesota, he's Pittsburgh here, but that is going to close it out for us, and the game is about to begin, so make sure to get ready for that and enjoy the game. Peace!